Hello, it's Matt from Guitar Nerds. We are back at ArcTanGent Festival, and I'm here with Plini from Plini.
Hello, this is Plini from Plini.
I was going to say in wet, well, it's slightly damp Bristol here. So is it first time in the UK, first time playing shows here? Have you done many shows here before? Or?
I played at UK Tech Fest last year, and that was the only time I've ever played in Europe. I guess we're not in Europe anymore. I don't want to bring that up, do I?
No. We'll avoid that.
Okay. So that was my first time in this part of the world, but this is my first time actually touring.
Yeah. And you played this morning, so we were like, what? We're Friday now, aren't we? I'm sort of losing track of times. Yeah. And you're playing later on, so I think all your stuff's like backstage, so we couldn't get a guitar or anything, but we thought we'd talk through some of your gear anyway. So you use Strandberg.
Yep.
Right? So what kind of drove you to using that? Any particular reason? Is it something you just sort of discovered, or...?
My first serious guitar was an Ibanez S series.
Okay.
And that was inspired by like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and all
classic.
those guys.
Yeah.
That was a sick guitar. I played it for like 9 or 10 years. I still have it. And then I thought maybe it's time to get a second guitar.
Yeah.
And at the time I just found Strandberg because like Chris Letchford and Misha from Periphery were playing them.
Yeah.
And they just looked sick.
We were saying on the podcast we do last week actually that they're becoming like a real like up and coming brand because they're a great modern guitar.
Yeah.
They offer you a range of sounds that kind of the classics don't.
Yeah.
And the feel, because obviously they're headless and a lot of them are fan frets, so they give you like a totally different feel to like any normal guitar as well.
And I think the scary thing about Strandberg is if you accept that it is a good modern guitar, it makes traditional guitars seem wrong.
Yep.
Because like if a fan fret is the way to make the intonation better, it's sort of like, why should anything not be fan fret?
Exactly. And it's a difficult thing because you're constantly going across like, classic. Why people are like, why mess with a 50-year-old design? But there are basically flaws in that.
Yeah.
So was it something that you kind of... Did you want something for the record when you recorded it, or was it something that you just, like you say, you just needed something new and that was kind of the way to go? Were you going for a particular sound when you were picking up a new guitar?
I actually don't remember. I just felt like it was time to get a new instrument because the hardware was starting to become not its original color. Yeah. And I thought... I've never been hugely into gear, which might make this a disappointing conversation.
No, not at all. Actually, we were saying earlier, like, math rock and kind of tech metal and all that sort of thing is a big up and coming thing, and obviously that's why we've got festivals like this. And most people watching this, so you're going to expect like massive pedal boards, but actually the majority of the people we've interviewed have actually had like 2 or 3 pedals. Yeah. And it's about making the most of the gear that you've got available.
And so that was sort of my thinking with getting a Strandberg, because I was just like, okay, I'm going to get one more guitar. What's it going to be like? Something that I'm going to love and want to play all the time. And
also, I suppose if you're touring a lot, you can't necessarily take like 6 or 7 guitars and like tons of different tunings.
Not yet.
Not yet. But so you're taking that. What are you using amp wise at the moment? You've got anything that's sort of like
an AXFX?
Excellent.
Pretty
it's the first
much,
person we've seen today with
Really?
One. Yeah.
Before that, I was using an atomic amplifier, which is you know them?
Yeah. No, those.
Big, weighs nothing.
Yeah.
But for this tour, I was convinced by Aaron from Intervals to bring my AXFX. We got it hooked up to a laptop. So
is all your stuff kind of like triggered automatically, and or you doing? That's cool. So you kind of basically everything sort of created in the studio and. Kind of go from there.
This is the first time I haven't really had to do anything. I finally got a wireless, so I feel all professional. And I really just need to be at somewhere on the stage playing notes, and it'll come out the way it's meant to come out, which is
Happy
great.
Days. Yeah. So, when you... so you've got a new record coming out this year, or just came out this year?
It's coming out August 26th.
Okay, so when you were in the studio doing that, were you recording everything from the AXFX as well, or were you using a lot of analog gear? Okay.
I don't really have much gear at home. My studio setup is an iMac, an AXFX, and some cables.
It's kind of all you need, though, really.
Yeah.
What's your sort of process on like creating patches? Do you kind of have an idea in your mind, or is there a sound you've heard and you kind of work backwards from that? Or?
A little of both. I never really owned an amplifier, so I don't even really know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I guess from just so much time spent tweaking within a digital thing, I sort of know like if I'm trying to get a certain sound, it's the treble knob I need to move, or it's like the compression or something.
It's kind of weird, I suppose, because you don't necessarily have like physical controls on the amp, is it?
No, you got to double click something and type a number, and then you see the thing.
Which it gives you a different feel, because I find that with that kind of modelling gear as well, you don't necessarily, you get a different kind of what I call player feedback when you're hearing it through speakers or an amp.
We were talking about this on the bus like 2 hours ago, because the other night was the first time I ever turned on a tube amp, because Animal's guitar, we're on tour with Animal's their guitar tech, because we had a really tight stage, was just like, can you turn on the amp? And I had to look at it and be like, okay, there's on off and there's on standby. I think I need to have it so that it's on standby. And I told him that after the show, and he was like, what? That's the first time you turn on an amp. And then Tosin was talking about how, like, with a tube amp, you get an immediacy of playing with a real amp that you don't get, even if an XFX sounds the same. Yeah,
100%. So, I mean, I'm assuming you don't kind of necessarily use many pedals, but do you ever use anything kind of in the XFX? Is there any sort of go-to sounds that you've kind of
delay.
Yeah, that seems to be the main thing that most people are kind of going for today. It's just like, what, you know, if, like I say, if people have got small pedal boards, it's kind of like,
basically a delay fest.
Yeah, 100%, and a load of really cool ones as well, which is quite nice. I mean, have you found from being on tour with like Animals and stuff that they've kind of given you like ideas on kind of different sounds, and especially like a lot of these bands coming out at the moment, everyone's got these like super creative, which is kind of nice. Everything's like kind of different. So when you kind of came to doing the record, was there sort of something you wanted to achieve by the end of it, like tone wise, or were you just kind of just going into it with some songs? And
I guess my biggest influence in terms of tone would be John Petrucci. So I just want to get a really meaty rhythm tone and an epic lead tone, instead of go overboard with how much I let it take over the mix. And I think I got somewhat towards that.
So have you got any kind of like, you know, just before we finish, have you got any sort of like future gear sort of ideas? Is there anything you kind of want to get, or you sort of think you're happy with what you've got?
I'm a little bit torn. I played in Japan last year, and the guitarist that I played with in my band is a guy called Jakub Jitecki from Poland. He plays in a band called Disperse. And so I was using the amplifier direct, and he had a vintage Marshall head and a pod for all the delays and stuff. And I think I might want to use an amp rig. And have like a pedal board with some cool delays and stuff. It's just such a pain to travel with that stuff.
I mean, that's the thing, and it can be dangerous. You can start getting a load of stuff and you're like, how am I actually going to tour with all of this? Or how am I going to like use all this in the studio and then like reproduce it live?
And then like one patch cable goes and you spend like 7 years trying to...
That's why everyone needs a guitar tech. So, I mean, where can people kind of find out about you, about the music, and about all your gear?
Facebook.com/Plini. Or just Google it and you'll find stuff.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we'll catch you later on. Awesome. So thanks very much for watching. That's Matt for Guitar Nerds. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos coming soon.